I had a team simulate gay sex. I had a team turn off the lights and throw a chair at my head. I was at a tournament with a person who did not have a mouth. Humped each other for 9 minutes. Just dropped trowel and mooned a room full of dozens upon dozens of people. You have to understand, debate is, now I'm debating circa 2003 to like 2007, 2008, and then I'm judging debates for probably 4 or 5 years after that. And even back then, you have to understand, if universities are left-wing, debate is the fringest of the fringe of the left. If you were like a Bernie supporter, you're basically a fucking right-wing devil. That's how left-wing much of the debate community was. You could count on one hand at the national level the people that identified as Republicans. Like there was me, Boston College had a head coach that was Republican, maybe 2 or 3 other people out of thousands. When you say self-evident, yeah, sure, there's self-evident shit like white people are evil, they're racist. That's self-evident. You don't need evidence for that. I was at a tournament where the way it works is you're sort of randomly paired. Most tournaments are 6 to 8 rounds. So you're sort of, the first day, the first 2 or 4 rounds, it's just sort of random who you debate. There's no seeding most times. So you're affirmative one round, then negative the next, then affirmative, then negative. But once you go on further into the debate, they do what's called power pairing you. So if you've won both of your debates, you'll probably debate a team that's also won both of their debates. And they try to do that so the top teams are debating the top teams and the bottom teams are debating the bottom teams. That's sort of the idea. So oftentimes what can happen, because tournaments will be 2 or 3 days long, you might leave the tournament, go to dinner, then you go back to the hotel room and you'll have a strategy session. Okay, we're 3-1. What other teams are 3-1? Who are we likely to see tomorrow in a debate round? And then you'll strategize. What if we hit this team? What's their argument? Oh, okay, this is what we'll say to that. And those sort of things. There was a team that we were almost positive we were going to be debating the next day. And their strategy, they were 2 feminists, and their strategy was to strip completely naked and say that they were stripping off the bounds of the patriarchy. And my coach was pissed, which my plan was, and I was gung-ho, 100% going to do this, I was going to fucking call the police. That's what I was going to do. And report them for indecent exposure. That was my plan. And I'm just going to be like, nope, fuck all this. Nope, I don't give a shit. And it was ironic because these are very feminist. This crowd's very feminist, you know. It's mostly men that was in collegiate debate. And you get a win or a loss, but then you also get individual speaker points. Sometimes, depending on how people would debate, they would get a lot of losses as a team, but get very high speaker points. But it was very rare to get like perfect speaker points. So the scale was usually 30 points back when I debated in half-point increments. An average score, though, was like 27, 27.5. So if you got a 28.5, 29, that was usually your upper echelon. 29.5 was remarkable. I got a perfect speaker score, I think, 4 times in my life. Very rare. And these girls dominated speaker points. Because it turns out a bunch of fat, fucking horny dudes like seeing tits. That's what it turns out. Oh boy, what a good speech. Perfect score. So they're cleaning up. But I didn't debate them. I had a team simulate gay sex in front of us. Didn't make an argument, just humped each other for 9 minutes. I had a team turn off the lights and throw a chair at my head once for an argument that they call threat construction. So the idea was supposed to be that I would become hostile over the perceived threat that I had constructed in my head that I was being attacked. And they were right, because I told them, if you touch me, I'm going to knock you the fuck out. Which then became the argument in that round. What was the topic? Who gives a fuck? That's the whole point. Teams that debate like that don't give a shit what the topic is. It's irrelevant. I was at a tournament once. This fossil fuel was the topic. And this team from West Georgia that were sort of trolls, I don't know how it came about, but they went into the bathroom with a paper bag and shit in it because this other team was making a biofuels argument. And they were talking about using like cow excrement or something and mixing it with energy, fossil fuels, blah, 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 blah. they shit in a bag and put it on their table and said, turn that into fuel. And that other team got a lighter out and tried to light it, but the judge intervened. I saw there was an argument that was prevalent called steal the ballot. So a judge has a ballot and they vote for who's the winner or the loser of a particular round. And there are certain rules. Now, one of the things that's weird about debate, that the rules are up for debate. So one of the rules of debate says the team that is the affirmative has to have a plan that affirms the topic. So if the topic says the United States federal government should substantially reduce subsidies in one of the following 5 areas, your plan would have to substantially have the United States federal government act in a reduction of subsidies in at least one of those 5 areas. That's what your plan would have to do if you're affirmative. That's a rule of debate. Teams say, no, fuck that. That's racist. I don't have to be topical. Fuck that. We want to talk about giving the land back to Native Americans. And if you say no, the topic was supposed to be about subsidies, we say, see, you're a fucking bigot. You'll do anything to avoid giving the land back to the Native Americans. So that rule's up for debate. But why just that rule? Well, there's eligibility requirements, just like any collegiate activity. There was a team once that we debated that just brought in illegal immigrants that weren't students. And we're like, there, those are our debaters. But the rules say that you have to be students. Fuck all that. I was at a tournament with a person who did not have a mouth. I didn't debate them, and they literally would just give their speech. It wasn't like they wrote their speech down. They'd just go, And then when you said, I can't hear you, his partner would say, you're a bigot. True story. That fucking happened. Not making that up. I mean, a person literally born with a physical deformity that was unable to speak because they were born without a working mouth. You're very prevalent to just have people, the old organic intellectual, that would just rap, or instead of reading evidence, they would, just rap or something like that. Trying to think of the steal the ballot round, right? So getting back to that. So this was going around, this idea. One of the rules of debate says that the judge has to fill out a ballot, and they have to fill out a winning side and a losing side, and they have to give each debater individual speaker points. That's one of the rules of debates. But why? If I could choose not to be topical, if I could choose to have someone debate that's not even a student, why the fuck can't I say, no, I don't want that judge to fill out that ballot? And so there were all sorts of reasons that you would make that argument, but you would say, I'm going to take the judge's ballot and I will fill out the ballot. So I don't remember the particulars of this, but we had a JV team, one of our teams that were below, and a division below me, and this was, no, I would have still been debating, but I think I just went to this tournament as a coach, and the other team made the steal the ballot argument. They should be allowed to steal the ballot. And the guy on my team, his name was Dave, said, okay. And he walked up and he stole the ballot. And he filled it out. And said, there. And he took the ballot to the tab room that records the win and the loss. And the judge said, okay. And the judge's answer was basically, look, both teams agreed that whoever physically took the ballot and filled it out, that should be the way it goes. You've both agreed. I think that's horseshit. But to the extent that you've both agreed, okay. A lot of these performance teams that you would debate, you'd get their judges in the back of the room. So there were certain schools that you knew if you got one of their judges that it was going to be way fucking different. And I always did phenomenal with the performance judges in the back of the room. Like Louisville was radical black activist. And I remember one time I got a Louisville judge in the back of the room, and me and my partner, 2 white guys, and the other team, I think it was a woman and I think a white guy. And I think they were both white, but they're super lefty. And they stand up and they're doing their shit. And this woman, the judge's philosophy was like, I don't give a shit about evidence. I basically know everything that you're going to say. I've researched all this shit on the topic. I want to know about you. So I stood up, and it was all about race. And here I am, a white guy. And I just started talking about growing up in a town that was basically all white people. And I was like, it's easy to think that you're superior when you only know people that are like you. And then you come into the debate circuit, and all of a sudden, you walk into a round, and here's one of the smartest people you ever met, and there's some Muslim from, Pakistan who happens to be a woman, who's, a person of color, who kicks your ass. And then you're like, oh, maybe that whole supremacist shit's bullshit, Perfect speaker points. Fucking killed it. She gave me a perfect, won the round. It's just because you knew how to pander to them. You knew exactly what to say. Then I had another round where it was Towson, I think. They were also sort of radical black activists. I could be wrong about the specific team. But no, it was Louisville as well. They had a list of demands. And so instead of endorsing the topic, they instead had a list of 10 demands of the debate community. So the topic would be something like federal government reduce subsidies. They said, fuck all that. That's the evil white man telling us what we have to say, and we ain't going to do it. So instead, we have 10 demands of the debate community. You know, and it was shit like, we demand that the money be pulled and 50% be given to schools of color. We demand, you know, shit like that. And so we knew with the judge in the back room that we were fucked, that they were going to buy this argument. So what we did was, instead of demands, we did suggestions. We took the exact 10 demands they had and made them 10 suggestions. And we argued that demanding was confrontational, when suggesting was collaborative and was more likely to succeed, much like we preferred Martin Luther King over Malcolm X. And so we made the debate about why we should prefer the strategy of MLK over Malcolm X. And the school, Louisville, had no fucking clue what to say. They just had nothing. Because they were ready for us to stand up and be like, fuck that, you're not topical, you didn't debate the topic. And so when we stood up with this strategy, they had no fucking clue what to say. They're just like, well, it wasn't even like they were like, well, no, here's why the demands are necessary. They were just like, well, you normally argue that we have to be topical. And we're like, yeah, that's cool. Whatever you want to debate this time's cool with us. And so they did terribly. Now, let me also, in case anyone's wondering, this was not their top team, right? So this is a team we normally would have beat pretty handily anyways. And so the judge gives his decision, and his decision is basically this, and the room's packed. Because when you hear that there's like a fucked up strategy like that, people are like, oh shit, if you're not debating, you're like, what's going on in that round? Let's go check that shit out. So everybody's in there. There's probably 30 people in the room when the judge gives the decision. It's a younger judge. I didn't recognize him. But he was a lefty, you could tell. And he's like, yeah, Clarion dominates this. Absolutely right, blah, 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 blah. Goes on for 10 minutes. Other team's arguing, yelling at him, which sometimes happens after a round. We're going on and on and on. Me and my partner are sort of quiet, like, cool, kind of waiting. You know, I don't know what's next, another round, lunch, whatever, sitting there. You know, okay, other team's arguing. And then the judge says, but I vote for Louisville against Clarion at the end of the day. And I'm like, why? And he says, because they're black. And if you really believe all the things you said, as a white person, you're willing to give them the victory to help achieve the goals that you talked about in this round. There you go. An argument that wasn't even made in the entire debate. We won all of the arguments in the debate, but because of who we are, we should accept the loss as a sort of affirmative action to advance the cause for our opponents. That happened. And you're like, why did we even fucking debate for 2 hours then? Why even debate? Why didn't you just say, oh, you're white, they're black, they win, fuck off. You could have saved us fucking time. I could have went somewhere and did something worth meaning. I mean, it's fucking insane. That's what I mean, like, when it gets personal, like, what the fuck does that have to do with anything? At all. Like, it's so fucking ridiculous. And you just had to accept that shit. It was like, oh, okay. You know, it was aggravating more than you'll ever know. You know, and again, my partner's like this lefty, and he started like, he was almost fucking red-pilled by the end of debate. The last round I ever had at the national debate tournament was fucking, we don't have to be topical, rules don't matter. Me and my partner knew with the judges we had, it was a losing round, but we said, fuck it, man, we're going out like Chads. We're arguing rules matter, and we did, and we lost. And I gave the judges, somewhere there's a tape out there, me being like, I think you people fucking suck. This sucks. Fuck you. Rules don't matter. Bullshit. Other team was talking during our speaking time and shit like that. I'm like, that's fucking ridiculous. It's ridiculous. The whole thing's stupid. And then, like, I remember the one judge saying, it's like they're saying, like, yeah, in tennis, like, you gotta have a racket and you gotta have a ball, but what if we just remove the lines? And I was like, this is the dumbest fucking thing I've... First off, they didn't make that argument. Secondly, you don't see how, and like, it's bad form to really go at it with the judges like that. But this is my last debate ever, and we're fucking, I don't know if we were 1-7 or 2-6. I think we were 1-7. So we get our asses kicked at this tournament. And I'm just like, I don't give a fuck. I don't care. Fuck you. Bullshit. It's like tennis, but you remove the lines. Fuck you. And then they wonder why that, like, no one takes the shit seriously. And then, of course, I've told this story before. I know I'm ranting now about debate, but I told this story before. So there was this guy, I won't say anyone's name, not that anyone, these aren't names that you would know, but in the debate community, they might be names that people wouldn't appreciate their names being out there. One of the teams that is sort of known nationally in policy debate for starting a lot of the crazy performance debate shit was the school of Fort Hays, right? And so they would do crazy shit like, you know, play the national anthem while they'd light the American flag on fire, some shit like that. And they were known to do this sort of shit. And they had this crazy, like this hippie-like coach who didn't believe in wearing shoes, and you know, he's a decent guy, believe it or not. Like, I remember one time he was telling our coach who kind of knew him, like, you know, he has kids, but he's not going to teach them how to read or write until they ask, because that's like, you know, fucking the man keeping them down. It's like super duper hippie type shit. Okay. And this school, they would like, they would always be like, the rules don't matter, man. It's just fucking, and then a school like ours, our whole thing was like, but yeah, the rules matter. Games have to have rules. Like, we have to have an agreed upon framework in order to play a game. You can't sit down and play a game of checkers with someone if all of a sudden they're like, yeah, I'm going to bring in other fucking things that aren't pieces and just smack all your pieces off the board. And you'd be like, but you can't do that. It's not the rules. Who gives a fuck about the rules? Like, then it's not a game. You know, you have to have an agreement. You know, and so they would be like, the rules don't matter, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So, the biggest policy debate tournament in the country is called the NDT, the National Debate Tournament. It's like the NCAA tournament for basketball, except it's debate. And I think it's 72 teams, but each school could send up to 3 teams. So you can imagine if the NCAA tournament for basketball was allowed, each school was allowed to send multiple teams, you might see 2 teams from Duke and 2 teams from North Carolina. So it wouldn't be 72 schools, it might be 40 schools, but 72 teams. That's basically what the NDT was. So to qualify for the NDT, it was probably each year 55, 60 schools. It was pretty prestigious, especially when you consider there's no division. So it wasn't like being from small state school in Clarion, Pennsylvania, that we were debating other small state schools. We were debating Harvard. We were debating the Naval Academy, the Military Academy. You know, you're debating the biggest schools in the country. And so we were the first time, I think we may have been the first state school ever to qualify. But anyways, the other big tournament is called CEDA-NATS, Cross-Examined Debate Association National Tournament. That tournament is not invitation. So it's huge. There might be 300 teams because you could just register to be there. So it's a big tournament, and the good teams all still go, but there's a ton of teams. So at the 1 year at the CEDA National Tournament, the finals were Fort Hays with this coach that I just told you about, and they were debating, I can't remember the school they were debating, but it was a school like Towson that was radical black activist. So you had hippie, weird, sort of usually give the land back to the Indians team versus radical black activist team. At this particular tournament, the way it worked in the final round was they would put out a list of who the judges were going to be. And I think they put out, I could be wrong about this, it's either 7 or 5, but I think they put out a list of 7 judges. Each team gets to remove 1 judge, and then the remaining 5. So it might have been they gave a list of 5 judges, and then it was the remaining 3, or they gave a list of 7, and then it was the remaining 5. But you get the point. Fort Hays removed the woman who was the head coach of Pitt's, University of Pittsburgh team, who were also radical black activists. Now, they alleged that this, by the way, this isn't untoward. You get to remove 1 person. Doesn't mean you're saying fuck you, blah, 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 or anything like that. But you get to remove a person, and there's strategy to it. You're trying to remove the person you think is less likely to vote for you. Now, they had claimed, if I'm remembering this correctly, that they had had this woman judge them in the past, and basically the woman was like, I'll vote against white people for black people. Okay, here they are debating radical black activists. Judge is a radical black activist who claimed, I'll vote for people based on their skin color. They said, we don't like our chances. We're going to remove her. The entire debate, became the black activist team saying, you kicked off the only black woman on the panel because you're a racist sexist. That was it. That was the whole debate. The whole fucking debate. Didn't matter what the topic was, nothing. Now remember, you had to remove one person, so because they removed the black woman, haha, because you're racist. Now these are super fucking hippies. They're like, give the land back to the Indians. We're not racist, what are you talking about? So they're on their back foot. What? No. They lose. Their coach, Fort Hayes' coach, comes in after the round. It's the last round. It's the championship. So the fucking, whatever school this was in, the last round's in a big classroom. It's fucking filled with spectators. The judges are in there. The coaches for the teams. So the coach comes in from Fort Hayes and he's fucking livid. This is outrageous. We're not racist. Blah, 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 blah. He's yelling. Apparently, the woman from Pitt, who has nothing to do with the round whatsoever, she comes in and starts flipping the fuck out on this coach from Fort Hayes, which sort of proves the whole point. We didn't want that fucking lady judging us because she's literally in this round now where she had no place in fucking yelling at the team. So her bias was probably as such that they were correct to remove her. This particular incident is on CNN, in fact, where we're going with this. I can't remember the year, though, but nonetheless, this happened. So here's the head coach from Fort Hayes. He's screaming. The woman from Pitt's in there, and she's yelling. And the coach from Fort Hayes is saying shit like, the other side saying, but who gives a shit? The rules don't matter, blah, blah, blah. And he's saying, the rules do matter. Do you know how hard we prepared, blah, blah, blah. And it's so funny because it's like, you dumb son of a bitch. This is what policy schools have been saying for years. That the rules of the game matter. Personally attacking people like this shit and saying that you should lose for all this bullshit, that's dumb. We need to have a fair game. You have to follow the rules. And so now after years of training his team to be like, now fuck all that, now they're on the receiving end of it. Someone more woke than them came around. And they don't like it. And so they start, blah, 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 he's yelling. And then somehow, whoever was yelling back and forth, this is the moment that went viral and made it on CNN. He stands up, turns around, and drops his pants. And moons the entire audience. Then storms out of the room. It's the head coach from one of the most prestigious debate schools in the country, whose team was in the national tournament championships, just dropped trowel and mooned a room full of dozens upon dozens of people. Storms out. Cameras were rolling. The footage made it to CNN. So there was footage, though blurred out, of this gentleman removing his pants and mooning. This led to an insane crackdown on what was going on in policy debate. Basically, that coach was let go, completely fired. The woman from Pitt, I believe, was suspended for a year, if I'm not mistaken, from participating in collegiate debate. But the real ramifications were, debate was something different in the 70s and the 80s. And you had a lot of legacy people that donated to universities, and they would give money to debate programs. There were debate coaches that are making six figures, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year just to be a coach. That's how much money is put into this activity. And now all of a sudden, all these people that thought, oh, debate, like two people standing up with suits and ties and arguing points like I did it. When they started to see how much of a fucking joke it was, all of a sudden, I do believe Fort Hayes' entire squad, completely, their entire program done. Done. And you started to see schools' programs collapsing, one after another, after another, after another.
Your anger is bullshit.
I'm angry.
You are. You fucking look at this kid while he's sitting on the table shaking his head. You have a fucking comments made. It's not your place.
Oh, it's not my place to be
No,
part of this
it's not.
debate? And what are you doing? What are you doing? You're fucking neck on the
Yes, because I'm a fucking girl and we fucking
You're a fucking girl. I know too. I heard Melissa's speech about that.
Exactly.
Exactly. So